Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Christy. If you're new here, welcome. We are so glad to have you. We are iced in here in Oklahoma. It's crazy. We have been having thunder sleet. If you don't know what that is, picture a thunderstorm, including thunder and lightning. And instead of a downpour of rain, it is a downpour of sleet, which then freezes and accumulates like snow would, but it's solid ice. So that's fun. So today we have the dogs, which you probably already hear. Of course, we have Steve, who a commenter said was annoying. And I'm sorry, he is annoying, but it happens because, well, that's what happens on this channel. My daughter is here and my husband is working from home today, so I don't know what you might hear in the background, but just bear with me. All right, now that we got that out of the way, you may hear thunder because I just got a notification that lightning is in the area, which means we will probably be having another thunder sleet storm while I'm recording. How fun is that? But today is a special day. Why, you may ask? Because it is my best friend Steph's birthday. You guys know her. She is a mod, and her name on here is My Life's a Hoot. So please wish her a happy birthday. And we have this from Steve. Steve also wishes you a happy birthday, Steph. We love you so much. And I wish I was there instead of iced in, and we could be celebrating eating these beautiful cupcakes together. It's also a big day today because it is National Hot Chocolate Day, and it's perfect for me because we are iced in. And I know this winter storm has hit a lot of y'all, so grab yourself a cup of hot chocolate and let's dive in to what we're going to talk about today. Today, I'm going to bring us back to the missing mom out of Massachusetts named Anna Walshe. Anna and this dipshit, her husband, Brian Walshe, who has been charged with her murder now. So just to kind of give us a refresher of everything up until this point, I'm going to play a short video clip for you of the timeline, and then we're going to go over all of my information for you.
January 5th, the first time we showed you these photos now synonymous with a heartbreaking crime. Anna Walshe of Cohasset, a 39-year-old mother of three, reported missing, not seen since New Year's Day.
I got a call from her husband asking me if, given the close relationship I have with Anna, and if I had spoken to her or talked to her or heard anything from her.
She was supposed to fly to Washington, D.C. for work, but never made it. That Thursday was also the first time we'd see Brian Walshe, Anna's husband, who quickly turned from our cameras.
Is this 516? Oh, hey.
No. January 6th, as crews search for Anna in the woods near her home, the mystery of her disappearance grows.
At this point, we cannot confirm that she actually got into a rideshare in Cohasset.
Suddenly, news breaks that Anna's former home burst into flames not far away.
This case has so many twists and turns, and that fire today was one of them. I've never seen anything like it.
A fiery clue? Not so much. Investigators ruled it an accident and unrelated to the case. On Sunday, January 8th, 1 week since Anna vanished, a bombshell rocks the quiet South Shore community of Cohasset.
Breaking news first here at 10 o'clock. The husband of a missing mother in Cohasset has been arrested. The district attorney says Brian Walshe is charged with misleading a police investigation.
On Monday, January 9th, charged with misleading police, Brian Walshe is led into Quincy District Court, where more twists awaited inside. Prosecutors say a bloody knife was found inside the Walshe home, and video showed Brian inside a Rockland Home Depot the day after Anna vanished, purchasing hundreds of dollars worth of cleaning supplies. Electronic evidence tracked him there. In 2021, Brian Walshe pled guilty to selling a pair of fake Andy Warhol paintings. He's under house arrest awaiting sentencing and can only leave his Cohasset home with federal permission. Later that night, hours after Walshe returned to his holding cell, news broke on the North Shore.
Sources tell Boston 25 News a dumpster was towed from husband Brian Walsh's mother's apartment complex in Swampscott, about 8 miles from where we're standing, to this trash transfer station here in Peabody, just off of Route 1. Police have been searching through the contents of that dumpster for more than 5 hours now.
It wasn't until January 10th when we started to learn what investigators had found in Peabody.
The Norfolk DA confirms items of evidence were recovered at the garbage dump, and we now know what some of those items are. Multiple sources tell 25 Investigates a hacksaw and a blood-soaked rug were bagged as evidence.
On that Tuesday, video also surfaced of Brian Walshe at a Norwell juice bar, not far from that Rockland Home Depot where all those cleaning items were purchased. The video was taken one day after Anna vanished. Wednesday, January 11th. Still no sign of Anna, and the only development in the case would be news of more surveillance video.
We have confirmed that state police are now in possession of video surveillance of Brian Walshe outside a dumpster in Swampscott, near a liquor store, near a Whole Foods. That's the area where he said he was on January 1st, which is the day that Anna Walshe disappeared. So a very interesting development there.
Less than 24 hours later, on January 12th, we break a new development, not in Massachusetts, but D.C., where Anna lived. First at 5, breaking news in the case of a missing Cohasset mother. Boston 25 has uncovered a police report from 2014 where then Anna Knipp told officers Brian Walshe threatened to kill her and her friends. And as that story aired, the people of Cohasset, a self-described hometown community, gathered to pray for Anna and her family.
You know, it shattered our little idyllic town. So it happens everywhere. Things can happen everywhere, but when it happens in this type of setting, it's just even more of a shock.
Since Brian Walshe was taken into custody, the couple's 3 boys, ages 2, 4, and 6, remained in state custody, their mother missing, a father in a jail cell. In the days to come, we'd learn of search warrants returned and sealed, and that according to police logs, it was Anna's employer in D.C. and not her husband Brian who first reported her missing. But still not the news Cohasset waited for, until suddenly on the afternoon of January 17th, when everything changed.
The continued investigation has now allowed police to obtain an arrest warrant charging Brian Walshe with the murder of his wife. Mr. Walshe will be transported to the Quincy District Court for arraignment on the charge of murder.
Okay, so everybody caught up. We remember everything that's going on, right? Okay. So what I did was kind of like I did for the Idaho case. I kind of went through at the January 18th hearing all the evidence that the prosecutor laid out. I went through and put it all out there visually so we can look at it and kind of grasp the magnitude, the totality of what they have. And then after we go through that, I went through and made a timeline of everything in order that happened, that was texted, that was searched, that was said. And I think it's really interesting to go through it that way and kind of be able to see, okay, on this day this happened and this is what he was doing or she was doing, what have you. So, alrighty, let's dive in. Actually, before I show you the first slide, I'm going to go ahead and play for you the January 18th hearing. Well, it's not the whole hearing, but a video about the hearing, so you know what I'm getting ready to outline for you.
It was on Wednesday, January 18th, we'd see Brian Walshe led into Quincy District Court for a second time, now charged with murder.
No one was prepared for what would happen inside. Our Bob Ward was there.
Do you understand those charges, Mr. Walshe?
I do. Even though Brian Walshe had little to say at his murder arraignment, his words, allegedly found in Google searches, hung heavy. Brian Walshe is charged with killing and dismembering his wife, Anna Walshe, missing since New Year's Day. Prosecutor Lynn Beelan laid out for the court a mountain of evidence against Brian Walshe, including a series of internet searches found on his young son's iPad. And they start at 4:55 a.m. on January 1st. How long before a body starts to smell? 3 minutes later at 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. Less than an hour later at 5:47, another search, 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m., a hint of a possible motive, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. And 9 minutes later at 6:34 a.m., can you throw away body parts? Later that morning, more searching at 11:34, dismemberment and best ways to dispose of a body. The next day, January 2nd, the Google searches grew more grim. At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw, best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? And at 1:14 p.m., this unsettling search, can you identify a body with broken teeth? Later on January 2nd, Walshe was recorded on video surveillance wearing a face mask and gloves, buying cleaning supplies and a hatchet. The next day, Tuesday, January 3rd, another set of Google searches. At 1:13 p.m., what is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on the surface in the woods? And at 1:20 p.m., can baking soda make a body smell good? Hours later, starting at 4:27 p.m., the prosecutor says Brian Walshe is seen with his Volvo at dumpsters at 2 apartment complexes in Abington and 1 in Brockton, struggling with heavy trash bags. Police never found those bags.
These bags and what was in them were already picked up and taken to a location for shredding and to be incinerated. By the time police located that, they were already destroyed.
But north of Boston, a search of a dumpster near Brian Walsh's mother's house at a transfer station in Peabody yielded 10 trash bags of evidence. Inside, police found Anna Walsh's COVID-19 vaccination card, hunter boots, Prada purse, and pieces of her necklace. Also, they found a hatchet, hacksaw, and cutting shears. The bags also contained a medical suit, slippers, and rugs that contained blood with DNA that matched both Anna and Brian Walshe. Before the arraignment wrapped up, the prosecutor said there was one more Google search. On December 27, 2022, days before Anna Walshe vanished, what's the best state to divorce for a man?
Our Bob Ward reporting. In a statement, Brian Walsh's attorney, Tracy Miner, says in part, quote, "It is easy to charge a crime and even easier to say a person committed that crime. It is much more difficult thing to prove it, which we will see if the prosecution can do."
Okay, so for us, for the public and her family, everything was set into motion on January 4th. However, her disappearance actually happened days before. So Cohasset Police Department gets a call from Anna's employer in DC. The employer, it was the head of security for Tishman Spire, and the employer says that she's missing and asks for a wellness check to be done for her at her home in Cohasset. Anna was due at work on January 4th and didn't show up. It is at this time that Brian first reports Anna missing. When the police show up at his house in Cohasset to do a wellness check is the first time that he reports her missing. It had been reported earlier that her employer and he called it in at the same time, but they actually called it in and then he reported it when they showed up. He's like, yeah, I haven't talked to her for a few days. So Brian says Anna left the house at approximately 6 a.m. on January 1st. He says she took an Uber or a Lyft to the airport because she was returning to DC for work. He said that she was supposed to go back, like she was scheduled to go on the 3rd, but there was some work emergency that was going to require her to go back on the 1st. He says that he has not spoken to her since the early morning hours of New Year's Day. And this is unusual because everyone that knows her, like work and friends, etc., say she would never go a day without FaceTiming with her kids. She's the mom of 3 boys, aged 2, 4, and 6. And she had not contacted them this entire time. And for her, that would be highly unusual. He says she was wearing a dress, a black jacket, hunter boots, a watch and ring, as well as carrying a Prada purse. He says it was between 6 a.m. and 6:10 a.m. on January 1st when he last saw her. So, according to the prosecutor and investigators, on January 4th, 2023, no Ubers or Lyfts were sent to that house on January 1st. Anna's cell phone pinged as being stationary at the house from New Year's Eve till January 2nd at 3:14 a.m. Anna's cell phone was turned off at 3:14 a.m. on January 2nd. Now remember, she should be in DC, right? So why is her phone pinging at home and why is it shut off? And then that's a picture of hunter boots and Prada purse. Just examples. I don't know if those are the exact ones that she had, but I want you to see them because they're going to come up again later. Now let's talk about these Google searches. So on January 1st, dipshit Brian, big belly Brian, bumbling Brian, whichever you prefer, does these Google searches on his son's iPad. Now, I can only imagine that he did this on his son's iPad because, well, for one, he's a dink, but did he think that when it was known she was missing and the investigators came to collect all the electronic devices, that they wouldn't take his son's iPad because he's just a kid, so they wouldn't take it? That's not how it works. And some people suggested that maybe he was going to frame his son, which I find that highly unlikely since they're 2, 4, and 6. And he had also blamed his son, though, that he couldn't find his phone the day that he went to his mom's house and got lost. So the son is catching a lot of heat, I guess. But I don't think he was trying to frame his son. And some of these searches, I don't see a 6-year-old knowing what it is, for starters. And why would they be searching it? So at 4:55 a.m. Now remember, he says the last time he saw her was at between 6 and 6:10. So even before that, at 4:55 a.m., he's saying, how long before a body starts to smell? 3 minutes later at 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. 5:20 a.m., how to embalm a body. Now, what kid is going to be looking for that? 5:47 a.m., I think this has to be my favorite. 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. If you really need to. Had to throw that in there because apparently he really needs to dispose of a dead body. So these are all done while, according to his story, Anna is still allegedly there getting ready to take her Uber or Lyft to the airport. Now at 6:25, after, according to him, she's gone, how long for someone to be missing to inherit? Now, if you watched my last video, you know Anna had a very large real estate portfolio and all of her properties are in her name. He is not on any of them. So that's interesting. 6:34 a.m. Can you throw body parts away? 9:29 a.m. What does formaldehyde do? Again, do you know a child who knows what formaldehyde is? Or how to spell it? 9:34 a.m. How long does DNA last? 9:59 a.m. Can identification be made on partial remains? So now it's really starting to get disturbing. Not that it wasn't already disturbing, but now we are really starting to get into some disturbing searches. 11:34 a.m. Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. Because I guess 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to did not answer that question well enough for him. Now we need to know about dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. 11:44 a.m. How to clean blood from wooden floor. 11:56 a.m. Luminol to detect blood. Again, not a lot of kids are going to know what luminol is. 1:08 p.m. What happens when you put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m. Is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Alrighty. And on January 6th, he went shopping. Let me see where I'm at here in my notes. Make sure I don't miss anything. So on January 1st at 3 p.m. was when he did his errands. Let's go back over here. He quits Google searching at 1:21. 3 p.m. he did some errands and went to his mom's house in Swampscott, but he got lost because he didn't have his phone for the GPS. He stayed 15 minutes at his mom's house. Then he went to Whole Foods and CVS. But surveillance was checked and he didn't enter either of those stores. And then he came home. All right. Now we're going to move on to his shopping on the 2nd. So he goes to Home Goods in Norwell and he purchases 3 rugs. Of course, we do more Google searches, which we'll get into. And then he's seen on surveillance at Home Depot in Rockland sometime after 4 p.m. And he bought items including cleaning products, mops, buckets, brushes, tape, tarps, Tyvek suit with boot covers, goggles, baking soda, a hatchet. He was wearing a face mask and rubber gloves at the time. At 5:32, he's seen in Hingham removing the gloves and the mask. So you can see in the picture, I've got just some examples of what he bought. The gloves, the suit, the goggles, the tarp. You know, if you're cleaning the house, maybe some of this is understandable, but why do you need a hatchet? And what in the world are you cleaning that it takes $450 worth of supplies for? I don't know. But let's take a look at what he searched for on January 2nd on his son's iPad. At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw, best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth? What did he do to Anna? Okay. On January 3rd, his phone tracked him to an apartment complex in Abington. At 4:27, he's at this apartment complex in Abington, and the prosecutor says his Volvo is there and he is there. She says his Volvo and a male fitting his description exit the car near the dumpster, is exactly how she put it. He walks to the dumpster carrying a garbage bag. He's leaning, and it appears to be heavy because he has to heft it. That was her terminology. He has to heft it into the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster with a garbage bag and leaves it. So that's at 4:27 in Abington. At 4:48, he's seen at another apartment complex in Abington doing the same thing with heavy garbage bags. At 5:10 p.m., cell phone records show him at another apartment complex in Brockton. Video shows a party with his appearance and his Volvo. Again, he discarded items in the dumpster. So, appears to be his car, appears to be him. Cell phone records match up time-wise with the video, and he's struggling with these heavy garbage bags. And of course, he also did some more Google searching on the 3rd. Again, on his son's iPad. At 1:13 p.m., he said, "What is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on a surface in the woods?" Very specific question. At 1:20 p.m., he asked, "Can baking soda make a body smell good?" All right. On January 4th, he went to Home Goods and TJ Maxx. He purchased towels and bath mats as well as men's clothing. At 4:15, he went to Lowe's. He purchased squeegees and a trash can. So you can see all that in the picture. When the police department went to his house that day, officers observed his Volvo with the seats down and a plastic liner in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo shows seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks. When asked about the liner, he said he threw it in the trash. Later, the car was analyzed and blood was present in the car. So here's kind of an outline on January 4th. Cohasset PD gets a call from Anna's employer in DC. Anna's employer says she's missing and asks for a wellness check to be done at her home in Cohasset. It's at this time Brian first reports Anna missing. And then he goes into his story about seeing her at 6 a.m. and that she took an Uber or a Lyft, which, as I showed you before, didn't happen. So then finally, now that he knows, okay, she's missing, he starts to call people. And this is an example of one of the emails that he left for a friend. "Good afternoon. This is Brian Walshe. I hope all is going well. I was just reaching out to basically everybody I could. Anna hasn't been in touch for a few days. If you know anyone that may have had contact with her, I'm trying to call everyone. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sure everything is fine." And they found this note that he had written to himself, and it's his response to friends. So he's already practicing what to say to his friends. And what little I can see here, it says, "I appreciate your concern. Right now, my focus is finding Anna and spending time with her." Why you have to write it out and practice it? Okay. January 5th. His phone shows that he traveled at 8 a.m. first to daycare and then to his mom's house in Swampscott, where she lives in some type of an apartment complex. She had sold this big home she had and moved into this apartment complex. At 9:30 a.m., the phone traveled to the complex where his mother lives, went around the building for about 5 minutes to the southeast corner. In the southeast corner, there's a dumpster. The dumpster was later secured and searched. So here you can see that. January 8th, police and crime scene services searched the house in Cohasset. They found blood in the basement, a knife with the presence of blood, and the knife was damaged, which we know sometimes happens. Sometimes they break when you're stabbing somebody. In addition, there was heavy-duty large tarp and plastic liners purchased from that Home Depot, as well as a second knife also found in that basement. Police checked for activity on Anna's cards, and there was none since she was last seen on January 1st. The police department tried to track down what happened to the bags that were thrown in the dumpster earlier in Abington. unfortunately, they were unable to get them. She also had a plane ticket for January 3rd, and she never boarded the plane. She also never changed the reservation and got a ticket for January 1st, which is when Brian said she left. She still held a ticket for January 3rd, but never boarded the plane. Like I said, they tried to track down the bags that were thrown in the dumpsters in Abington, and they weren't able to recover them because, unfortunately, they had already been picked up and taken to a location where they shred and incinerate trash, and they had already been destroyed. So whatever evidence was in there has been incinerated, and that is unfortunate. They were so heavy, it very well could have been Anna. Okay. Mom's dumpster, different story. So the dumpsters from his mom's complex in Swampscott were searched at a transfer station in Peabody. Investigators recovered 10 trash bags. So you can see this up at the top is them actually physically doing the search at the transfer station in Peabody, and they got 10 bags, and items inside were covered with blood and tissue. So now we're going to go over the contents of these bags. Okay, so we got 10 bags out of the dumpster. You can see at the top. Among the items were towels, rags, slippers, tape, Tyvek suit, gloves, cleaning agents, carpet, rugs, hunter boots, Prada purse, a COVID vaccination card with the name of Anna Walshe, a hacksaw, a hatchet, and some cutting shears. The boots and purse were described as what Anna was last seen in. A portion of rug was heavily stained with red-brown stains and was also consistent with having baking soda on it. There was a portion of a necklace which is consistent with one Anna had been seen wearing in photos. The state crime lab performed testing on certain selected items that were recovered from those trash bags. There was human blood on them, and they were sent for DNA testing, and the findings were as follows. Okay, so these are the slippers, and you can see on the side I kind of put a little, the bluish green, that is Brian's DNA. The pink and purple is Anna's DNA. So you can just kind of visualize as I tell you about the findings. On the slippers, interior, Anna and Brian Walshe were contributors to the DNA on those slippers, which had blood on them. On the exterior of the slippers, Anna and Brian Walshe had contributed to the DNA found on the slippers. Same here with the DNA, just so you can differentiate whose is whose. On the Tyvek suit, on the interior cuffs, Anna and Brian Walshe contributed to the DNA that was left on them. That's on the interior cuffs. On the exterior left pant leg, Anna Walshe was the contributor of the DNA. On the interior right sleeve, on the inside right sleeve, Anna Walshe was the contributor of the DNA. It was tissues that were found that contributed to the DNA.
Yes.
That is disturbing. On December 27th, he had done a Google search for the best state for a man to get a divorce. And the prosecutor said that apparently he decided instead of divorcing her, killing her and disposing of her body was the better option for him. He is being held without bail, and on February 9th, there is going to be a status hearing done via Zoom. And then I'm going to show you this video. This is about her mom, and then we're going to dive into the timeline that I put together for y'all.
Anna reached out to her mother in Serbia on December 25th, Christmas Day. The text read, quote, "Please, Mama, come tomorrow," a request her mother denied. When Fox Digital asked if a reason was given for the urgency, Milanka Lubicic replied no. Later adding, on December 31st, she missed 2 calls from Anna's phone around midnight. A third missed call came in at 1 a.m. Failed calls were also placed that night to her sister and maid of honor. Anna's mother told media in Serbia she was asleep, adding, quote, "I can't forgive myself for that." She also told Serbian reporters she visited Anna and Brian for 16 months and did not get the sense that anything was wrong between the couple.
2 days before Anna vanished, 25 Investigates learned she sold her Revere condo for $220,000, a 60% profit from the 2020 purchase price. Brian Walshe was listed as the seller's spouse on the paperwork. Anna Walshe owned at least 4 properties worth $1.8 million, according to records obtained by CNN. 2 in Massachusetts, 1 in Washington, and 1 in Baltimore. Brian Walshe is not a co-owner. Since 2018, Anna Walshe sold at least $2.7 million worth of properties. Now, before being charged with murder, Brian Walshe had already been in trouble with the law. He was accused of selling a pair of fake Andy Warhol paintings. These are those paintings. In 2021, he pleaded guilty and was awaiting sentencing. That's why he was on house arrest in Cohasset in order to wear an electric monitoring device. The owner of Revolver Gallery in L.A., Ron Rivlin, was the victim of the art scam. He lost $80,000 to Walshe. In a statement to Boston 25, Rivlin says, quote, "Myself, the FBI, and the DA had trouble breaking him down, getting him to change his not guilty pleas, apologize, repay his victims, and get sentenced. Lawyers, courts, all that, and he still did not voluntarily settle. He never apologized."
Brian's father, Thomas Walshe, died in 2018. The will was destroyed by Brian, a longtime friend of Thomas's, told Boston 25 News. Before it was destroyed, a photo was taken, and we obtained a copy through Plymouth probate court paperwork. On page 16 of the court paperwork, the will of Thomas Walshe reads, quote, "I hereby bequeath to Brian R. Walshe my best wishes, but nothing else from my estate." The friend, who does not want his name used, says Brian Walshe conned his father, Thomas, out of hundreds of thousands of dollars and then disappeared from his father's life. Court documents also allege that Brian destroyed the will and tried to take control of his father's estate.
As Brian got older, he sort of lost touch with how people make it in the world and just assumed a mantle of entitlement. There were signs he was a con artist. There was more than signs. There was ample examples. But there was never a mean streak. There was never even an angry stare. There are violent criminals, and there are swindlers and grifters. There are all kinds of criminals. And they're usually not blended. So I was shocked when I heard it. All the people that I know that know Brian, because Brian was a regular fixture in his father's homes, are equally shocked. No one said it was just a matter of time. Everyone is shocked.
Court documents say another family friend provided a statement to the courts which described Brian Walshe as not only a sociopath, but also an angry and physically violent person.
Anna had 3 children, all boys, ages 2, 4, and 6. We've been told they're in DCF custody, which means relatives or a foster family is now caring for them. Anna's friend, Alyssa Kirby, spoke about Anna's desire to have the children in Washington, D.C. with her.
In her house here in D.C., she has their rooms all set up, and everything in the rooms is like special to each child. And she would keep their beds made and their sheets clean and just waiting for the time that her kids could come here.
Throughout this investigation, we've spoken with former federal prosecutors, former U.S. attorneys, and lawyers here in Boston.
And they all agree, proving guilt without a body is tough, but not impossible.
The government's very lucky here in 2 ways. Number one, he had that ankle monitor and he was under house arrest, which then begs the question, why was he in Salem, in Peabody, and elsewhere throughout these days after her disappearance? And then the technology on those devices certainly are incredible. So scientific evidence, the computer forensic evidence here, and the experts that the government has eventually testifying to that evidence will be critical in terms of their reliability and expertise.
That evidence alone, what was in those devices, is not sufficient to sustain a conviction of murder.
I wouldn't rush to judgment yet on this case and declare it over. However, I will concede, though, that it really was a particularly strong bunch of evidence that they laid out for the public.
Joining us now to talk about the Anna Walsh case is Boston 25 News reporter Bob Ward.
Bob, you have been a reporter for decades. What stands out most to you with this case compared to others that you've covered?
Well, at first, I think I was drawn in by just the inconsistencies here, the mystery of it. You know, where is Anna Walsh? What happened to her? Was this a suicide? Did she take off, or was she a victim of foul play? But now that we're at this point, I think the depravity of this case, I have a hard time wrapping my head around this, that somebody would go to these lengths to dispose of a body. Of course, these are allegations, but I am just kind of struck by that and just how vicious and brutal this case was.
I think we all are. Yeah. Certainly people hang on every word, especially at that arraignment the second time. Let's talk about your sources. I know they've been providing you a lot of information, and you've been breaking a lot of stories on this case. Now, with a little bit of a lull here, do you think you're going to hear anything else in the meantime?
I do think there's a lot more information that will surface. The very first thing that will surface eventually is going to be the results of all those search warrants that, you know, there was a lot of searching at the dumpsters and everything. We just got a glimpse of that. So there's going to be physical evidence that we are going to be made aware of. But more than that, I think we're going to find out what the motive for this crime is, what authorities believe the motive for this crime was. They hinted at it at the arraignment, when there was a Google search for inheritance. So that suggests there was something about money here, and also that other search about divorce days before anything happened to Anna Walsh. Those are going to be important signposts to watch, and I expect we'll be getting more information about that.
We have gone in depth with the physical evidence, the digital evidence, telling our viewers and walking them through what you have uncovered and what prosecutors have told us. Can you describe for us, Bob, what it was like to be in that courtroom when all these details, these horrific details, were presented?
Well, you could hear a pin drop when this got going. I mean, we walked into that hearing not expecting much. I expected to hear maybe some of the forensics that would come back that would signal why authorities thought that Anna was dead. Maybe DNA on the knife, for example, in the basement, or the blood in the basement, or from the rug. I did not expect to be hearing internet searches, especially 20 internet searches. So as that was unrolling, it was just the other reporters were quiet. We were scribbling down our notes as fast as we could. And then I was looking up at Brian Walsh himself, and he was just subdued. He was not like that smart alecky guy that we saw a week and a half earlier. A completely different atmosphere in there. And after it was all over, it was kind of like a gut punch. When you looked at the totality of all those things that we heard, it was like a gut punch.
It really was. Bob, we appreciate all your reporting you've done so far. We know you'll have much more to come on this as well, but
and it is like a gut punch, right? That's why I did this sort of rough timeline of her missing, taking all of the information that we have and putting it in chronological order, because when you look at it that way, it's just, it's a lot. So I wrote it out for myself. You can see it's like pages and pages and pages, but instead of reading all that out of my notebook to you, I decided to make up a document so we can look at it together. So let's see if my computer will cooperate with me. So far, so good. All of my mini documents from the docket over there. Binders and binders full of documents. Yay. Okay. So, starting out on December 25th of 2022, Anna pleads with her mother to come visit from Serbia. Anna wants her mother to travel to Washington, D.C. the next day. Anna's mother suspects there's problems between Anna and Brian. And then later, a translation came out of the text, and Anna told her mom that her and Brian were arguing, and when she asked about what, she said the kids. I'm assuming, like I said, in my other videos, she was ready to take the kids, move to DC, and just have her life there with the kids. Probably without Brian. So that's on Christmas. She's begging her mom to come. 2 days later, Brian does his Google search, what is the best date to divorce for a man? So we know they're arguing about the kids. On the 27th, apparently he's thinking about divorce. Maybe she brought up divorce. I don't know. December 29th, she sells her apartment in Revere, Massachusetts for $220,000. Now, she was allegedly trying to get rid of that apartment building as well as her car for cash by the end of the year. December 31st, New Year's Eve of 2022, Anna and Brian have a New Year's Eve party at their home. Brian fixes an elaborate meal, and a friend in attendance state there was no indication of any problems. At 12 p.m., Anna's mother misses her call. Anna had been promising friends and associates that a big surprise was coming in the new year, but she didn't say what it was. She sought to sell her apartment in Revere, Massachusetts, and her car for cash at the end of December of 2022. So January 1st, early morning hours, 2023, 1 a.m., Anna's mother misses her call. Anna's sister misses her call. Anna's maid of honor misses her call. At 1:30 a.m., her friend leaves the New Year's Eve party. 4:55 a.m., Brian does the Google search, how long before a body starts to smell. 4:58 a.m., Brian does a Google search, how to stop a body from decomposing. 5:20 a.m., Brian does a Google search, how to embalm a body. 5:47 a.m., Brian does a Google search, 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. 6 a.m., Brian says Anna leaves via Uber or Lyft to go to Boston Logan Airport to fly to Washington, D.C. for a work emergency. No Uber or Lyft was sent to this house on this date. 6:25 a.m., Brian does a Google search, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. 6:34 a.m., Brian does a Google search, can you throw away body parts? 9:29 a.m., Brian does a Google search, what does formaldehyde do? 9:34 a.m., Brian does a Google search, how long does DNA last? 9:59 a.m., Brian does a Google search, can identification be made on partial remains? 11:34 a.m., Brian does a Google search, dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. 11:44 a.m., Brian does a Google search, how to clean blood from a wooden floor. 11:56 a.m., Brian does a Google search, luminol to detect blood. 1:08 p.m., Brian does a Google search, what happens when you put body parts in ammonia. 1:21 p.m., Brian does a Google search, is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? 3:00 p.m., Brian runs some errands and goes to his mother's home in Swampscott, Massachusetts. He gets lost, so it takes him roughly 90 minutes. 4:30 p.m., Brian arrives at his mother's home. 4:45 p.m., Brian says he goes to Whole Foods and CVS. There is no surveillance footage or receipts to prove he was at either store. 6:45 to 7 p.m., Brian leaves his mother's home to drive back to Cohasset, Massachusetts. 8:00 p.m., Brian returns home. Anna's cell phone remains stationary, pinging at their home the entire day. January 2nd, 2023, 3:14 a.m., Anna's cell phone is turned off. 9:57 a.m., Brian is at Press Juice Bar ordering 3 kid-sized chocolate peanut butter smoothies. At 12:45 p.m., Brian does a Google search, hacksaw best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., Brian does a Google search. Can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., Brian does a Google search. Can you identify a body with broken teeth? Brian says he only left the house to get smoothies on this day, but at 3-ish p.m., Brian goes to Home Goods in Norwell, Massachusetts. He purchases 3 rugs. At 4 p.m., Brian goes to Home Depot in Rockland, Massachusetts. He purchases $450 worth of cleaning supplies and other items, including mops, buckets, brushes, cleaning agents, baking soda, tape, tarps, gloves, goggles, a Tyvek suit with boot covers, and a hatchet. He is seen on surveillance footage wearing a mask and gloves while he shops. He pays in cash. 5:32 p.m., Brian is seen on surveillance footage in Hingham, Massachusetts, removing the mask and gloves. On January 3rd, 2023, at 1:13 p.m., Brian does a Google search. What is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on a surface in the woods? At 1:20 p.m., Brian does a Google search. Can baking soda make a body smell good? At 4:27 p.m., Brian goes to an apartment complex in Abington, Massachusetts. He's seen placing a heavy garbage bag in the dumpster and leaving other garbage bags. At 4:48 p.m., Brian goes to another apartment complex in Abington, Massachusetts. He places garbage bags in the dumpster. At 5:10 p.m., Brian goes to an apartment complex in Brockton, Massachusetts. Anna should have flown to Washington, D.C. on this day. Her plane ticket was never used. January 4th, 2023. Anna does not show up for work in Washington, D.C. 11:44 a.m. The head of security for Anna's employer, Tishman Speyer, reports Anna missing and asks police to do a wellness check. At an unknown time, Brian goes to Home Goods and TJ Maxx. He purchases towels, bath mats, and men's clothes. At 4:15 p.m., Brian goes to Lowe's. He purchases squeegees and a trash can. At 6:35 p.m., Cohasset police respond to the wellness check. It is only at this time that Brian reports Anna missing. On January 5th, 2023, at 8 a.m., Brian takes his boys to daycare. At 9:30 a.m., Brian is at the southeast corner of his mother's apartment complex where there is a dumpster. Law enforcement makes a statement that Brian is cooperating with the investigation on this day. On January 6th, 2023, Anna and Brian's former home that had recently sold goes up in flames. It is said to be unrelated. Also on this day, the 2-day extensive ground search is called off. On January 8th, 2023, investigators return from Washington, D.C., and police execute a search warrant on the family home. In the basement, a damaged knife with the presence of blood is found, along with a second knife, a large heavy-duty tarp, and plastic liners bought at Home Depot. Brian is arrested for misleading the investigation, and the 3 boys are placed in foster care. On January 9th, 2023, Brian is arraigned on the charge of misleading the investigation. He pleads not guilty and is held on a $500,000 cash bond. A trash transfer station is searched in Peabody, Massachusetts. This is where the garbage bags from his mother's dumpster were found containing items of evidence with blood and tissue on them. January 12th, 2023. Police reveal that Anna called police on Brian in 2014 saying, "He's going to kill me." On January 17th, 2023, Brian is charged with murdering and disinterring a body. On January 18th, 2023, Brian is arraigned on the new charges. He pleads not guilty. He's held with no bail. A status hearing is scheduled for February 9th, 2023 via Zoom. After January 1st, 2023, there was no activity on Anna's credit cards and there were no outgoing calls made on her cell phone. So I hope that was helpful to you guys. It kind of helped me to see it all laid out like that. All right. Okay, so just some little odds and end things that I jotted down that I made notes about that I thought were either interesting or significant. Let's just put Anna back up here. So Brian had permission to leave the house to take the kids to school and run errands such as grocery shopping on certain days. He also got permission to take his mother to appointments. If she took the kids to DC, Anna, if she had taken the kids to DC, it would have significantly cut down on his time allowed to leave the house. Because remember, he's on house arrest for the whole Andy Warhol fraud and is still being investigated for what he did regarding his father's estate. So if she had taken the kids and gone to DC, the only time that this guy is going to be allowed to go anywhere is like to go grocery shopping, go to court, and take his mom to appointments. And that would be it. So when they met, she was either a maid or like, a front desk clerk type person at an upscale hotel. And I'm sure his money and connections helped propel her career, but she was working her butt off. She had her own assets and money now. She had a thriving career. She had a whole other life without Brian in DC. And I'm sure he felt like he had lost a bit of control over her and just their life, right? He saw that she didn't necessarily need him now. That, not in the way that she may have needed him in the beginning, because he helped, make introductions and all that. And she, though, is the one that did the work, right? I'm not saying that, like, she used him for his money or his connections. I mean, she may have, but whatever. If she did, she still doesn't deserve what happened to her, right? But he made the connections, but she's the one that had to do the work, right? She had to prove herself to whoever. And I'm sure he didn't like that she had made her own way now. She had her own connections, she's working. Tishman Speyer is huge. Like, they own like Rockefeller Plaza and places like that in New York. They're big. They're very big. And that's who she was working for. So kind of this is, if we were in court, this would be hearsay. Anna allegedly confided with a few friends in the last month leading up to her disappearance that she was more concerned about her mother-in-law doing something to her than Brian. She was fed up with his FBI case not resolving. She sold her Revere, Massachusetts apartment to buy property in Baltimore. She already has one property there and had a meeting with a real estate agent on January 3rd to purchase the property next door that was about to be listed. She didn't want to manage any more properties from a distance and was reinvesting in Baltimore. She loved DC, had a beautiful home set up for the boys. Their bedrooms were set up, schools lined up, etc. This friend says Anna did not have a boyfriend in DC, but the mother-in-law's psychic told her Anna was having an affair. She allegedly the mother-in-law had private investigators in DC trying to catch Anna in the act. Yeah. Now, the relationship with the mother-in-law, she flat out said that she doesn't like Anna. So it's interesting that she was worried about the mother-in-law doing something to her. And knowing that the mother-in-law heard from a psychic that Anna was having an affair and went, that extra step of having her followed to catch her in the act is wow. So Anna had amassed her property portfolio, which was worth about $2 million at the time of her disappearance. Based on dipshit's Google searches, it sounds like he was looking forward to inheriting all of that. Property records show that all of the homes and rental properties were in her name only. She had been associated with 8 properties in Massachusetts, DC, and Maryland since 2018. 4 she had sold and 4 she owned at the time of her disappearance. She had property deals ongoing up until her disappearance. Less than a week before she was reported missing, she closed the deal on December 25th on the apartment in Revere. It sold for $220,000, which is 60% more than the $137,000 she bought it for in 2020. That is a nice profit. In March, she sold a home in Cohasset, that's the one that caught on fire, for nearly $1.4 million, and then she purchased her home in DC for $1.3 million. The home they were living in when she disappeared was a rental, which was $5,000 a month, but Brian's mama is the one that was paying the rent. Weird. So, from what I can only imagine, is Brian's federal case should be resolving. She's frustrated because it's not. They're renting this home there because Anna has no intention on staying in Mass, right? She wants her life in DC. So they're renting this home, and then when Brian eventually has to go to jail, there will not be a need for a home in Massachusetts because she will then take the boys to DC with her, right? That's the way I see it. Anna's mom says that she can't believe that Brian could have committed this crime. She said that she's seen the Google search history outlined by prosecutors on Wednesday and that it made her upset, but she doesn't believe it. She says she doesn't believe it because Brian was never aggressive and he was never mad or furious. There are several articles suggesting that Brian struggled with his mental health for years and sought help on several occasions. Friends of his late father, a neurologist, say that he told them Brian was a sociopath. That was the explanation his father gave for why they were estranged. His father said Brian had been diagnosed and would never change. Brian's attorney, Tracy Minor, issued a statement saying, "It is easy to charge a crime. It's not really easy to charge a crime. And even easier to say a person committed that crime. It is a much more difficult thing to prove it, which we will see if the prosecution can do. I am not going to comment on the evidence. First, because I am going to try this case in the court and not in the media. Second, because I haven't been provided with any evidence by the prosecution. In my experience, whereas here the prosecution leaks so-called evidence to the press before they provide it to me, their case isn't that strong. When they have a strong case, they give me everything as soon as possible. We shall see what they have and what evidence is admissible in court where the case will ultimately be decided. Although it is probably fruitless, I ask that you not inundate my office, my home, or my cell phone with media requests. I will not be giving any media interviews or comments. I intend to win this case in court, not in the media, which has already tried and convicted Mr. Walshe." Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Brian's mom and Anna. When this was originally reported, investigators stated that a family member, not Brian, he was asleep, had seen Anna leave to go to the airport at approximately 4:30 a.m. I haven't really heard this mentioned much, but that was the story originally. Somebody had seen her leaving at 4:30. Now, we know that Big Belly Brian said that he saw her at 6 or 6:10, right? But originally, a family member, somebody other than Brian, said they saw her. There's Steve, guys. That annoying bird. Somebody said they saw her leaving at approximately 4:30 a.m. And it is assumed that that family member was the mother-in-law, that she was staying there, taking care of the boys, what have you. The family member has not been named, but it is heavily implied that it is the mother-in-law. Brian had gotten time approved to leave his house to drive his mother home after she recovered from cataract surgery. However, she recovered sooner than expected and drove herself home. So was she at their house when this happened? Who saw Anna leaving at 4:30? And then why did Brian say Anna left at 6? Somebody didn't get their story straight. So Brian's mother, Diana, wrote in a 4-page letter. This is for his federal trial. My son is the only reason I get up in the morning. He is the only person to take care of me, and he is always there. She said she relies on Brian for everything, even bringing her to all of her appointments after multiple lung cancer surgeries and other health issues. She wrote, unfortunately, I do not have a good relationship with my daughter-in-law, perhaps due to cultural differences. Now, Brian's mother is Iranian, I believe. And then, of course, Anna is from Serbia. So I'm not sure what the cultural differences are, but there you go. Therefore, my son is the one and only constant in my life, taking care of me and ensuring I have some joy by seeing my grandchildren. This just drives it home for me. This woman would not have wanted Anna to take those kids to DC because she says the only reason that she has the joy of seeing her grandchildren is because of Brian. If Brian goes to jail and Anna takes the boys to DC, then Diana is probably not going to see them. Or in her mind, she probably thinks she's not going to see them. If it were not, let's see, whoop, skipped a line there, sorry. She goes on applauding him for being the main caregiver for the 3 boys, not mentioning Anna once. She wrote, he cooks, shops, cleans, plays, communicates boundaries, and reads bedtime stories. If it were not for my son, my relationship with my grandsons would come to a halt. His mom allegedly paid for all of his legal expenses over the last 5 years, as well as paying the $5,000 a month rent on their home and supporting his lifestyle. How mad would she be about Anna taking the boys to DC? How much did she know? Would she cover for her baby boy? Those are my questions. Now, my last video, I talked about all of the crazy scandals at the apartment buildings that the apartment building, the crossing that she managed in DC. I'm not going to get into all that again, but if you want to know, watch that video. It's very informative. Let's see here. Is that it? Maybe that's it. So basically, I feel like if Big Belly Bumbling Brian had not been caught on video, making the purchases, doing the Google searches, things like that, that his defense could have stood a good shot at reasonable doubt. And it would involve pointing the finger at his mom, which he may or may not want to do. I mean, let's think about Casey Anthony. It worked for her when she pointed the finger at her dad. But, you know, the mom, it could be argued, the mother-in-law had motive, right? She's going to take the kids. She's going to go to DC. All her joy is over. And, yeah. And then the scandals at the apartment building, you know, the Legionnaire's disease one, maybe not, but the residents there were like fed up with Anna. And then you had the whole, you know, international spy type situation. You know, these guys are stockpiling weapons and spying on people, and they're from foreign countries and they're posing as Homeland Security and, you know, espionage and intrigue. And You know, the Secret Service was involved, you know, people that were supposed to be watching the First Lady, Jill Biden, you know, that could have been pointed to easily, like it had something to do with that scandal, right? You know, whatever her disappearance is, it had something to do with that scandal. It had to. Couldn't be Brian. But then you've got all this evidence that points to Brian. But could Brian have been doing all of that to help his mother? Like, what if his mother did something to Anna and Brian is helping her, like, clean up and get rid of the evidence? You know what I mean? I'm anxious to see if that is a route that his defense will try to take and see where that leads. But for now, everything seems to be pointing straight at Brian Walshe. But if you dig in a little bit deeper, you see where there were chances for reasonable doubt. There's no way I think anything that was happening at the crossing is involved at this point. Because I don't know how Brian would be involved in covering that up for them, but I guess anything's possible. But the mother-in-law angle was very interesting to me. So let me know what you guys think. I don't know. It's a mess. It's sad. I wish they could find something, you know, to lay Anna to rest, to bring this, you know, full circle so we really know what happened and why. I hope her mom in Serbia is asking, you know, for access to information about the case. I hope she's coming around to start believing it more, maybe. I don't know who's going to take the kids. There's a lot of questions still. I don't know if we'll find out anything at the status hearing on the 9th, but I will watch it and let you know. So thank you for joining me here today and getting caught up on all things Anna and Brian Walshe. And stay warm, have some hot chocolate. I'm going to go shut Steve up and jump back into the Alex Murdaugh trial. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.